Hail.
Strength and honor. Mokra.
Ah, I have just the thing for you. May the eternal sun shine upon you.
Hey there, late.
Birds. They look like shit, and I think that's why I love them. Like some kind of walking burlap voodoo doll of a pigeon, you know? Just magnificent. So I give the rats my highest rat roundup rating.
Oh, Zed. Zed is enough. This is murder. Oh my God.
Good. Plus bird. The legacy left by Deus Ex was not one of complete unironic reverence. In fact, I'd wager an ever-growing population of gamer hatchlings primarily know of the game through memes. Memes centered solely around the game's monotone voice acting. This was something the team at Ion Storm seemed to want to rectify immediately. One of the early interviews with the team from GameSpy even has the interviewer plainly ask, "Can we expect better voice acting?" To which design lead Ricardo Bear responds, "We certainly don't want to have worse voice acting than the first game," oblivious to the eventuality that it would become arguably the game's most enduring hallmark, for good or ill. In this same interview, they'd throw out some names of who they were in talks with to voice characters in the game, now that they had a bigger budget and could afford real actors instead of just making their QA team do Chinese accents. Harvey Smith says, "We've approached Elijah Dushku and Kiefer Sutherland, as well as Christopher Lee, and well, nobody's gotten back to us, but that's the pool of quality we're swimming in now." By now, you've probably figured out that none of these screen actors are in Deus Ex Invisible War. But that's not to say the game doesn't have a quality voice cast of actual voice actors this time around. Guy Alex is played by Chris Sabat, who you've probably heard if you've ever listened to a dub of an anime.
Hi, what's going on? It looks like this facility is under attack.
His career is, in a word, invasive. He's like the Nolan Baker of anime, and yet his credits are still far exceeded by Laura Bailey, who voiced Lady Alex. Both do an admirable job of voicing a Deus Ex protagonist, a job that requires you to express a sliver of personality, but not enough to dissuade you from immersing yourself into their perspective, a roundabout way of saying a little stiff.
Hi. What's going on? It looks like this facility is under attack.
It is a talent, I think. They are both doing a thing and nailing the thing. It probably doesn't help that they seem less expressive, or maybe too expressive, and stuck with that expression. And the expression is a sort of wandering-eyed bewilderment.
Just kidding. Listen, I'm serious. You didn't hear the explosions? I saw a guard killed right in front of me on the apartment level.
A problem that probably could have been amended with a pair of shades like JC.
Just kidding. Listen, I'm serious. You didn't hear the explosions? I saw a guard killed right in front of me on the apartment level.
And perhaps they were a bit overzealous with their estimation of the voice cast budget because there were a few roles handed out to the dev team. In fact, one of the best voices in the game, the Omar Trader, was given to Ricardo Bear.
It is foolish to pass up this opportunity, but that is your choice.
Ultimately, its cast is reflective of what a game's cast should look like. That is to say, it's full of voice actors and not stunt-casted screen actors. Speaking of pulling double duty, the original composer for Deus Ex, Alexander Brandon, would be brought in once again, this time to handle not only the music, but most of the sound design and effects as well. On top of that, he also serves as the new voice of Tracer Tong, a Chinese scientist previously voiced by this guy. Sometimes the snake eats its own tail.
You're Tracer Tong.
I see that Dr. Deceif didn't exaggerate about your mental acuity. Yes, I'm Tong. I suppose you will be wanting some answers.
Mirroring the visuals, the soundtrack for Invisible War is a little more glossy with a sci-fi sheen. It's a touch more cinematic and analog. It's just a bit more expensive sounding, but maintaining that sneaky noir mysterious vibe to it. It's ominous, futuristic, and a little bit militaristic as well. It's kind of a shame that because game areas are so small, you don't usually have a whole lot of time to really soak it in before it's changed to something else. It really shines in the Seattle and Trier levels. There is this clear division between being in the upper class areas and the slums. It's like the vibe becomes sadder and oddly sentimental, as though it were mourning the loss of this neighborhood. Each level does have a distinct sonic palette it plays with, and predictably, the Cairo level incorporates a genre of video game soundtrack that I will, on the surface, roll my eyes at, but inwardly really enjoy. And that is what some refer to as... that summons to mind all the imagery you would associate with that. A camel chewing on something, a vulture flying overhead, the air rippling with heat, and a man at a wooden stall saying, "Greetings, traveler." I think my favorite vibe may be Antarctica, especially with the added wrinkle that the area was included as an homage to The Thing. It does sound, at least, like a legitimate horror level. I don't think it fully accomplishes that in gameplay or narrative, but the vibe of an Arctic research center besieged by creatures is there. I'm picking up on the notes of it. There are a few times when the game makes a stab for horror, and it's actually kind of sweet, trying to cultivate a particular atmosphere, elicit a certain response in what is essentially a series of little studio spaces. One such anomaly that always stood out to me is the room above the Nine Worlds Tavern in Trier, where if you play your cards right, the Omar Trader will show up, but if you break in there before they get there, the room is clearly ransacked. There's this extra spooky ambience and the shadow of a woman cast on the wall from a flickering lamp. You'll find the source is an NG Resonance action figure. They never go for that air of supernatural again, but I always hoped they would. Alexander Brandon would come out sometime later to say that the soundtrack for Invisible War was not what he wanted it to be. That Ricardo Bear pushed Thief the Dark Project as a reference point, which led to a sparse and subdued stealth-centric soundtrack, when by virtue of being an immersive sim, the soundtrack should have reflected variety and been more dynamic. A bit of inward and outward criticism that I can respect, as it must have been annoying to have done the previous game's soundtrack and then be told to wipe the slate clean and start over, save for the main menu motif. Last, but certainly not least, maybe most actually, the opposite of least, is the addition of LA industrial duo Kidney Thieves, the heartbeat of any of the scummy bars you'll find yourself in. This is completely emblematic of a certain era where the music I regularly listen to even now received mainstream recognition in media and in pretty appropriate venues as well. Licensed tracks from the band's first album, Trickster, play out of holographic jukeboxes, but not as the band Kidney Thieves. They are repurposed as the music of future pop star NG Resonance, and to further meld the two together, NG is voiced by the vocalist for Kidney Thieves, Free Dominguez. Kind of odd that they had just released an album at the time called Zero Space that you'd think they'd want to do like a cross-promotion sort of thing, but either way, big respect, because that album is Please don't copyright claim me. I just wanted to show a tiny bit of the fucking song so you can see how sick it is. That's all I'm trying to do. Go buy the album. You want me to shill for Kidney Thieves? I'll do it. And another thing, you ever just... God, it's just that there's no reason why this video should be this long. There's no good reason. I think this video is actually playing into mental illness, but I want to say it's sad that this is one of the first PC games I got that was in the smaller box. And it was not Game of the Year, but it was the sequel to Game of the Year. Video game packaging has mirrored my enthusiasm in the industry, just shrinking smaller and smaller until it disappears into nothing. All gone. Goodbye. Not even a StarCraft battle chest in sight.
You good, big dog?
I'm over it. While the iron was hot and nobody had that long to put to words what they didn't like about Invisible War, numerous attempts would be made to quickly cobble together a third mainline Deus Ex game. One began to sprout during Invisible War's production, when a Valve programmer named Art Min would be hired specifically to work on a new Deus Ex, and in a repeat of Spectre passing the baton prematurely to Smith, this programmer would be handed the position of project lead for a game called Deus Ex Insurrection. Warren Spector would contribute 6 loosely brainstormed outlines for possible plot lines to pick up the Deus Ex story. What scraps of this I could find seemed to point to these ideas being mostly all prequel ideas that would take place more directly after the end of the first game, during the collapse. One idea concerns a man named perfectly, I might add, Xavier Gale, a mech-augmented Black Ops guy that becomes disillusioned with his increasingly sketch duties as part of an elite squad called Black Rain, including facilitating the smuggling of the street drug Zyme and installing a puppet government during pandemic-related uprisings.
Editor's note, which is me, I just wanted to say the concept art for this character looks like it was probably inspired by Illyria from the show Angel, because the season she shows up in would have been airing around the same time of this game's development. I just thought you should know that I know that. Yeah, I can let go of your arm now.
The main arc would concern a VersaLife experiment gone wrong and Gale's daughter being kidnapped in order to pull him back into the business. Another idea has you playing as a kid practically, who lies their way into a Nevada militia during the collapse. This would have you revisit Area 51 as you search for some hope of putting civilization back together. Over the course of the story, your sister becomes indoctrinated into a religious sect called the House of the Righteous. She disappears and their house of worship seems emptied. Suddenly, your command back at the militia designates the house a threat and orders the building be burned to the ground. You are then roped into hunting the cult down and even posing as a fresh convert with them, milking your sister for information. I don't like the way those words were put so closely together. Interestingly, there is a note at the bottom of this page suggesting that with some slight tweaking, this same plot could be used as a direct sequel to Invisible War. Art Min would unfortunately not take into account the ideas thrown out by Warren Spector and would instead suggest a prequel to the first Deus Ex game that, funnily enough, parallels what Eidos would wind up doing with the Deus Ex Human Revolution, despite nobody on that team being aware of these unused design documents. In this one, you'd play as Blake Denton, the man who would go on to father JC and Paul Denton, though early concept art for this protagonist refers to him as Adam Denton, which is eerily similar to Human Revolution's Adam Jensen. He was gonna be like a badass Delta Farce commando guy, and on a secret assignment in Colombia, something which Spectre takes issue with in his notes, suggesting Mexico would make more sense than the established canon, he would get blowed up, but he wouldn't die. He'd be saved due to exposure to experimental nanotechnology of unknown, possibly alien origin. The game would depict how nanotech biomods even became a thing as the US government began reverse engineering them off his body. The main conflict would come about when they learned that the technology came from debris that fell from space and landed in several different countries, allowing the world's superpowers to develop literal superpowers. Blake has to race around the globe, making sure no other superpower capitalizes on the advanced tech, while presumably developing trust issues with his own government. Aside from the extraterrestrial element, which is in itself pretty massive, this was meant to be a return to roots after Invisible War. The rest of this sounds really soft sci-fi. It's all political and military thriller. This was to be a story driven by paranoid theories, betrayal, hatred, and devotion, following a more traditional mission-based structure instead of the hub worlds of the last two games. But a new addition would be a sort of home base where you would change your loadout, organize your team, and just vibe in between missions. Ultimately, this project that would have used Invisible War's engine made it far along enough to have concept art, some new AI behavior programmed, but in late 2004, Warren Spector left Ion Storm to pursue other endeavors, and according to Min, the project died pretty much immediately with his exit, and he soon left as well. Though I guess there were no hard feelings because they founded Junction Point Studios together a year later. While Insurrection was in pre-production, a fourth Deus Ex game was also in the works, a spin-off title that would be a tactical first-person shooter called Deus Ex Clan Wars. While this game would also use Invisible War's engine, it would address some issues with Invisible War by making levels larger, having less dialogue, and would complement the timeline presented in Insurrection, sitting in between Deus Ex and Deus Ex Invisible War as an interquel. This game technically was released, only late in development it began to stray from what the team felt a Deus Ex game should be, and by the time anyone saw a frame of it, it was reworked as a new IP titled Snowblind, and then finally Project Snowblind. This game was developed by Crystal Dynamics, and I don't quite know how it was meant to fit into the canon, but I'd wager it wouldn't be too hard to work backwards and figure that out. Early concept art makes it pretty clear what this game was meant to be, and design documents do refer to this guy as Dixon Denton, an augmented part of a Liberty Coalition and a militia called Republic want to trigger a Dark Age using an EMP weapon. I'm not sure if having Project Snowblind just be a part of the Deus Ex mythos would harm or help the franchise, but it's kind of a bummer that the world was not ready to do sex with Dixon Denton.
What did you see?
They killed a baby.
Aha! Ritual sacrifice.
Illustrating both how competitive and prone to infighting Ion Storm was, and how desperate the studio was to get another Deus Ex out. As the hammer seemed to be dropping on their studio, a third Deus Ex prequel was also in production, running parallel to Insurrection, and it came to be the more fleshed out cancelled project simply by living longer. This one would be pitched by Jordan Thomas, the lead designer for Thief 3 Deadly Shadows, who had dreamed of contributing anything to Deus Ex. Thomas would describe the culture during this period as an auteur cult built around specific personalities. An entire studio of the same kind of guy that had been told they were the top fuckers and who had all been filtered through the Looking Glass school of thought. When Warren Spector left, they realized he was sort of the arbiter of how things operated. He nodded knowingly to their pitches and circled bits of their proposals with an arrow pointing to the word, "Huh?" And they were left without a father figure. Jordan's team didn't even see the design documents for Insurrection until it had been officially cancelled. Of these ideas, this one seems like the hardest loss, because it was so clearly penned by someone with a deep passion for Deus Ex. He made its development a sort of personal dragon, and it's honestly an insanely creative idea as well, making it that much more of a bummer that he never caught it. Art Min's idea, in comparison, feels really safe and like trying to rekindle the atmosphere of the first game, backspacing the focus testing notes while continuing to focus on accessibility. Jordan Thomas's Deus Ex 3 would have been open world, taking place entirely in a freely explorable cyberpunkified New Orleans. Instead of going around to waypoints and collecting tasks to accomplish, missions would come from a generative system that reacted to your actions in the world, something he would come to compare to Far Cry 2. Again, you'd play as JC's father, this time a discarded, augmented experiment that is left for dead, your visible mechanical bits showing and freaking out people because the technology isn't public knowledge yet. You look like a Terminator freak with exposed circuits and gears and shit. This would force you to stick to the shadows, keeping a low profile, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, with the Nosferatu gameplay in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines cited as a reference point. Over the course of the game, you rise in power and modification until you are led right back to the same assholes that tossed you aside. In this game, nobody was immortal. You could literally kill any character in the game, but important ones would be sort of downloaded and preserved in your brain. Concept art shows locations like a grimy casino and a downtown strip cluttered with holographic advertisements. There's also quite a few more horror-themed transgenic enemies, further displaying the darker tone they seem to be toying with. Also Monkey, a lot of this game was written down, but Thomas became skeptical when Eidos refused to allow them to use a different engine than Invisible Wars. The publisher wanted all their games to use the same engine, but most reviews of Invisible War included plenty of complaints that pointed back to its engine, so they didn't see the point in revisiting it. After a rough prototype of what the combat would look like, Eidos wound up shuttering Ion Storm, as it was already hemorrhaging staff after War Inspector's exit. In an interview with Eurogamer, Jordan Thomas seems genuinely hurt that Ion Storm fell apart, and that after coming close to his dream, he instead experienced the back-to-back flops of Invisible War and Deadly Shadows, leaving the interview by saying, "There's a reason the place closed, and it was chiefly hubris. There are many people who will tell you that the publisher fucked us, but no, the method failed. Making a smaller, more intimate Deus Ex was on nobody's mind, including mine." If it's any consolation, he was then hired at Irrational to work on BioShock and continued to do so until that studio was dissolved. I don't know, it's a disquieting narrative really. I tend to deify dreamers and demonize publishers, corporate dillweeds that stomp on the creative type's dreams, but it's an interesting perspective to see how that can become toxic and dreadful with a lack of guidance. When you handpick a team of main characters that all know they are the best of the best and ask them to work together and get a group project done, they needed guys like me, guys that barely participate or talk and then call in sick the day of the presentation.
What's your neighbor watching now?
Huh?
I mean, what are you picking up with your cursed nanotech augment?
Oh no, I pissed those out.
You can do that?
Yep, just right in the toilet.
That sounds bad. Like, are you feeling...
Oh no, I have a UTI, like, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Does Monster have a cranberry flavor?
Googling.
0 sugar, please? I wish I'd never bought this mess. I didn't do my research and thought that it was the same sort of thing as the first Deus Ex, or even the third. But this is something that was dumbed down for consoles and boiled in the dubious soup of early 2000s aesthetics, rather than really having anything to do with any of the other games in the series. How much did you pay for this, big dog? Well, like $1? You spent the same amount as, like, including a cup of dipping sauce with your lunch order, and you got the gall to complain? I don't mean to sound dramatic, but the fact that you didn't enjoy this game, let alone play it for at least an hour, is all your fault. And then you just kind of make some shit up at the end there because you didn't play the game. That dubious soup of 2000s aesthetics, which by the way is infinitely, cosmically more interesting than our bizarre and misguided obsession with photorealism, actually has everything to do with the other game in the series, because it's the second game released in the franchise. It's a direct sequel to the one that came before it and concerns the events of that game. I really need you to start doing your research because it's clearly creating a lot of confusion in your thinking. This game is bad and the creators should feel bad. This has more in common with Star Trek and the sci-fi original picture Living Hell than Deus Ex. It's crippled by being Xbox native. The story is bad and full of holes so large you could comfortably stunt fly in Antov AN 225 Maria through a Okay, I get it. You like planes. Which is shocking with how overcompressed and oversimplified it is. Bad resolution, bad vibes, incoherent narrative, and a world-ending event with 0% chance of survival somehow contained magically to one city then barely addressed or explained. I wish I'd never wasted money on this pile of unrealistic, outside-of-universe, oversimplified pile of dog shit excuse for a sequel to a game it has barely anything to do with. You know what I think? I think this was never meant to be Deus Ex. I think it was entirely a separate game with its own story, and halfway through they realized it was never gonna sell without a name of a franchise on it. It's like a bad knockoff of Mass Effect. Every mechanic or story element that made the original good is gone, and even the fighting is oversimplified, as if they are calling players, wow, this year? Don't buy this game. Just pretend it doesn't exist and move on to Human Revolution. You'll thank me later. If you're playing games looking for plot holes, like, we're not the same. But having said that, I think it's a perfectly coherent narrative. If anything, I wish it were a bit more complicated and had more to say about the socio-political messages it wants to examine. I'm guessing the world-ending event contained in one city you're talking about is the inciting incident, the destruction of Chicago, which is like one of the central mysteries in the game's setup, and without spoiling what happens, it wasn't a world-ending event, it was a terrorist attack on a single location. The perpetrators of this attack purposefully selected a location to destroy and destroyed it. This is why it was contained, non-magically, to one city. I mean, this is a sci-fi game with impossible technology. It's a story that concerns upgrading yourself with nanomachines. There's gonna be stuff that is, by the standard of our real lives, magic, I suppose. Point is, the people responsible for this event and their motivations are made painfully clear by the end of the game, which you didn't get anywhere close to. It's odd how many of these bring up that it has nothing to do with Deus Ex, or that it's outside of universe, when it has like the most to do with Deus Ex. It's quite literally the conclusion to the world of Deus Ex at the moment, at least. It picks up after the things in the first game happened, and even concerns many of the same characters from that game. It's just slow to reveal how intertwined they are. They were doing a thing. They wanted time to cook that you didn't give them. That's on you. As far as your theory that this was not meant to be a Deus Ex game until halfway through development, I don't know if that was hyperbole on your part, but that is simply, provably, undeniably untrue. Would that fix anything if it were true? Would that put your mind at ease? Either way, the game is here. It's got Deus Ex on the box, and it's high time you accepted that. This game isn't very good, it's goofy, and the protagonist sounds like AI. Yeah, I'd actually agree this game is a bit goofy, but so is the last one, and so are a lot of great games. Goofy is a quality. Goofy is love. Goofy is life. Goofy is a dog. Gorsh. Also, I get they're saying that the voice acting sounds like AI to imply that it's robotic or monotone, but it's just kind of unsettling to think how rapidly that comparison is no longer applicable. It's honestly worrying how human AI can sound. Would it totally blow your mind if I told you that for the last 2 minutes, my voice has been an AI? Isn't that crazy? It's not true, but it would be crazy if that were true, right? Now every time I try to make an AI of my voice, I just sound like a fucking paranormal content sex pest.
Hello? Who's this guy? You see what I mean? I sound like a lobotomized Chills.
Don't. Just don't. I played and beat this game when it came out back in the day and thought it was alright because there wasn't much else to do back then. What the fuck are you talking about already? There wasn't much else to do back then. You're talking about 2003, like we lived in Roman decadence, having indulged every excess until we had become numb to worldly pleasures. Actually, there was shit to do. Tony Hawk's Underground came out that year. Put some respect on the name. Nowadays, you've got so many other better things to play, things that probably have better voice acting, better gameplay, better writing. It tries to recapture the conspiracy and gray areas the first game built up, but instead just feels like it's rehashing all of it from a different angle. Go watch a no commentary let's play of the first 30 minutes, and if it seems appealing, by all means have at it. Okay, I mean the last part is like fair enough. I feel like that's solid advice for anyone with no video game literacy. I think a lot of people have this unspoken cutoff point where a game becomes old and thus not worth your time. And this is likely a young person's opinion. I guess you see this in other mediums, but mostly video games, where there's this constantly shifting standard of subjective quality you come to expect. But I think that's simply a stupid idiot mindset, that's all. Only thing making this game good is the ragdoll physics. You know what? I got nothing but respect for that. We can agree on one thing. This is not a bad game per se, it is just inferior to the first Deus Ex game in every aspect. The universal ammo system makes zero sense unless the ammo is made up of nanites, which still makes zero sense considering the huge cost of manufacturing. The level design is cramped, making you feel claustrophobic in a bad way. The levels are just so small, it feels most of the biomods are useless, at least unused for most part of the game. It is just so mediocre on every level considering it is the follow-up to one of the greatest games in gaming history. This is just a huge letdown. Sorry JC, this one gets a thumb down. Okay, see, I can't knock that because that's instinctively what I did. Like, I understand universal ammo as a mechanic decision. I don't really agree with its implementation, but I understand the developer's reasoning for it from a strictly game design theory standpoint. That said, it's a tough thing to visually or narratively make sense of. Like, what is the ammo exactly, and how is it changing shape? It would be one thing if they just said it was like a universal battery and all weapons in the future were, you know, charged railgun devices with different utility, but Mako Ballistics makes these things, implying some kind of ballistic projectile, you know? Anyways, I agree compared to Deus Ex, it feels restrictive where I once had so much freedom. I could run around in circles, flailing my arms every which way, with little care for who I bludgeoned near fatally. But sadly, in Invisible War there is far from enough room to open up this pit. But it's also just impressive to me how much they managed to compress the design principles of Deus Ex. In its own way, it's pretty neat how they distilled its ideas into a digestible little treat, like a Halloween-sized Milky Way. Just the right amount of ingredients for me to glue my teeth together and feel like I've initiated a dubious science project in my gutty works. No location radar? I enjoy both Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. Thought to try this classic, however I will not endure to play it. This game has for me the fatal flaw many FPS and TPS games have. No enemy location radar. Impossible to sense where enemies are. In real life, we take cues from more than just our eyes to sense what happens around us. Playing a game without location radar is like living life with blinders on, forcing concentration awareness forward only. In a stealth shooter game, it is imperative that I have 360-degree situational awareness. This game does not. I've never heard such an earnest, tough guy cope about a popular game mechanic that has no basis in reality. Look, I'm the last person that's going to shame someone for playing a game on easy or needing some kind of added accessibility, but I know that radars, where enemies show up as little blips with cones of vision, is included entirely because it would be too hard on players otherwise. Because in real life, sneaking into a place you ought not be is way more difficult than we're ready to admit. You try to pull half the shit that Adam Jensen does, and in seconds, a man with an unfulfilled wife and alienated son will shout, "Stop right there, motherfucker," and then tase you in the nuts until you have a stroke and die. And then they get sent on paid leave before being transferred to another precinct. It's a story as old as time. What an exceptionally awful game. Not only do you have to sideload another version of the game to get it to run right, the game is just overall terrible. Do you like linear level design that forces you to retrace your steps for every single mission or side quest? Do you love loading screens every time you open a door? Do you like a storyline that doesn't even match the outcome of the original game it's a sequel to? Do you love playing stories with characters you really just want to kill by the end of the game? Well, hot damn, this game is for you. I was really frozen on the sentiment. Do you like linear level design that forces you to retrace your steps for every single mission or side quest? I admit, I'm not a game developer. I'm not an expert in any field. But I hear the term linear level design, and when you put those words together, I tend to think of a game that's played by walking down more or less a straight path, a straight line to a destination. Half-Life 2, for example, seems like a relatively linear game. It's a forward-moving sequence. It's a road story. So saying you have to backtrack back and forth to side content would kind of betray that claim. Adding to that, there are painfully obvious moments where there are multiple paths to meet at the same objective. Not like a lot. It's a tiny game, but that is there. If you're trying to get into the Black Gate, you could sneak in through the sewers, or talk to the WTO leader and get him to tell the guards to let you in, or kill the guards.
I might have given you a key to the gate in the courtyard, but if you'd rather fight your way through a Chrysalis, I guess I can't stop you.
Oh shit. Well, now that you mention it, that's exactly what I want. I mean, there's plenty of things to complain about with this game. This is just kind of weird. You're kind of weird, I think. I think you're a weird person. Do you love loading screens every time you open a door? I opened plenty of doors without loading screens. Here's one from the first 3 seconds of the game after the opening cutscene. But I can't know how far you made it in, so your mileage may vary. Do you like a storyline that doesn't even match the outcome of the original game as a sequel to? I don't really get this point either. Like, it's 100% a game informed by the ending of the game before it. That reality becomes more and more clear as you play it. But again, do you love playing stories with characters you really just want to kill by the end of the game? Yeah, actually. And you know what? What's kind of cool? You can kill all of them. And the game just takes that into account and offers up a revised ending based on that. Also, because the AI is so jank, some of them will just run into gunfire and die anyway. Sounds like this is the game for me.
What do you need?
When Invisible War was released, it was financially successful, and the majority of critics seemed to think it was a very good game with state-of-the-art lighting and physics. There was even a brief period when copies of the game would come bundled with GPUs. But maybe Invisible War's shelf life declined unusually rapidly during a period of insane leaps in technology and quality, and it became inexorably linked with disappointment, with failure. Comparing it to what games just a year later would look like seems needlessly cruel. But, I mean, come on. People are really dismissive and in some cases passionately bitter about this game. Even the fellers that made it. And I guess if your mission was indeed to be a worthy successor, I mean, you bungled that pretty catastrophically for a number of reasons. Some in and some out of your hands. I just don't think that deletes the game from the conversation. I don't think that means skip it. It's still worthy of a look, even if it's like a half out of focus side-eye, like when you're anticipating a jump scare in a spooky movie, only it's Paul Denton's mug. I don't think it failed to do what it set out to do. It introduced the franchise to a new audience and compressed immersive sim design down into something you could play on your couch. There are certainly concessions, compromises made. It's like a slice of a good pie, but it's mostly crust, you know? It's at a
like
weird,
half out
skewed
of
angle
side.
and not the normal triangle with the rounded end. Yeah. You know, fuck you. It was hard for me not to see the novelty in that. By design, it is not the same experience of Deus Ex, and thus not as good a game. But there are few games that are Deus Ex even now. As much as I would have loved simply another one, I knew that would be asking lightning to strike twice. I guess for me, it was never a matter of, is Invisible War a worthy successor to Deus Ex? This is a fool's question, worthy of a fool's answer. Like, yes. I just thought it was a fun little cyberpunk game that had subtle notes of another great game. Maybe at some point I felt bitter about the series being downgraded in some respects, but this was literally the era where I don't think a moment went by where I was starved for something to play. Us stinky boys were eating good in the early aughts. Also, I simply don't often form high expectations for anything, a self-defense measure that prevents me from really ever feeling disappointment about games. I can only be pleasantly surprised. This advanced thinking only applies to video games. In all other aspects of life, I am stunted and feeble. For a long time, Invisible War had a very comfortable seat in my memory dungeon. My dank, decrepit, crushingly deep black well of madness and creation was... Oh, getting a calling to... There is a quaint
close friend.
Ah, I've been expecting.
Hey, how you doing? Be good. Keep it real. What's up? Have a good one. Keep it real. Be good. Have a good one. Ah, potential customer. Be good. Yo! Have a good one. Yo! Glad I could help. I got what you need. Hey. Do I have a deal for you? Be good.
My, you're a tall one.
Greetings. All right, Ethan.
What's up? Hurry back! Keep it real!
Hi, how are you?
Yo, keep it real. Have a good one. Keep it real. Talk to me. Keep it real. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. I need to get closer. Too far away. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I need to get closer. That isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I have rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Too far away. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage.
How you doing, man? Okie dokie.
rage. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Too far away. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. I need to get closer. I can't. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage.
What you want? Later. See ya. Who you be? Hello, man. How you doing, man? Later. See ya later.
Peace, friend. In.
What do you need? Go forth to victory. Strength and honor.
How you doing, man? I can't carry any more of those.
Fatality!
How you far away. Isn't ready yet. I'm out of range. far away. Not enough rage. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Out of range. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Too far away. Yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. enough rage. Need more rage. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do it yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do it yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Rage. enough rage. Target. That ability isn't ready yet. More rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Need rage. Not enough rage. Not ready yet. Too far away. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. Isn't ready yet. Need more rage. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I need to get closer. I can't do that yet. Not yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I'm out of range. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. That ability is yet. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I'm out of range. Not enough rage. Need far away. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. More rage. Not ready yet. Isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. I can't do that yet. Need more rage.
You wish to speak? Hello. Be careful.
Great to meet you. Be good.
Relax.
Ogra! You safe. Zug zug.
Hit it.
Time is money, friend.
Greetings.
What's up? Hurry back.
You need something? Can I help you?
Time is money, friend.
What you want?